Hi, welcome to Couch on Fire. My name is Erica Martin and I'm going to be your host. I'm a psychotherapist with 20 plus years experience and I'm welcoming you to the conversation with fascinating people with unique stories to tell. So if you're interested in learning how to dig deep, get the hell out of your own way and start living your best life, then I think you're going to love today's episode. So you can spend your life choosing to put out fires or set your soul on fire. And the choice, my darling, has always been yours. Hi, welcome back to Couch on Fire. I am here with Nate Tarbaugh, who has been in executive management in the construction industry for the last 22 years and has crossed over into executive coaching, correct? For people who are struggling with substance abuse. Welcome, Nate.
I'm glad to be here.
I am
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. You are one of my favorite people. You really are.
Thank you.
and over the years, we've gotten to know each other. And you lost hope somewhere along the way. And this show is really about helping people find their own way and empower them and to dig deep and to get the hell out of their own way. So how did you get the hell out of your own way, Nate?
It's been so long since I've thought of that, actually. It brings me back a little bit there. You know,
It's probably hard, right, to start there.
It is.
It is.
Years ago, there was a time when I would go to sleep at night and not want to wake up in the morning. And it's hard to imagine me being that person today.
Yeah.
But I was there, and it was not that long
you.
ago. It was over 10 years ago, just roughly about 10 years ago, that I made a decision to get sober. But I did that not to quit drinking. I did that to embrace life and live life. I knew to take that first step, I was going to have to quit drinking. And
Which is so incredibly hard to do. It's so brave to do.
it didn't feel that way at the time.
Right.
It felt I felt very much ashamed of myself because to me, when I made that decision, I didn't think it would be that hard. And I had tried to drink or tried to quit drinking on my own for months before that. And the only thing that led to was that desperation I just talked about, which was that I would go to sleep at night and not want to wake up in the morning. Came awfully close to succeeding in doing that.
I remember in one conversation we had, and it was pretty powerful, I thought, where we talked about that idea of no longer being here was almost like a security blanket, right? Like we don't realize that sometimes that thought of maybe I don't have to wake up and face or confront this is actually a way of safeguarding ourselves from all of the shame, the pain, the things we're talking about.
Yeah, it was weird. I did not realize that I had that blanket of I always had the option to end my life. I always had that option.
Yep.
And getting sober took away one key way that I could have done that. Because I couldn't just, for lack of better words, drink myself to death. And then I get sober, and I expected that feeling to go away. And the part I did not expect to happen is that all my old coping mechanisms and all the feelings I had were still present. All that negative stuff was still present and coming back much stronger.
Because now you can't numb it down, right? You have to deal with
Exactly
it, and
right.
it's not just the reality. Love those pants. Not just the reality of getting sober and dealing with that. It's now the pile of stuff that was neglected, right? Like all those things that were ignored or pushed away because it was too hard to look at. Now you have that on top of
right for a person who was not very good at dealing with his emotions. Yeah. Now all of a sudden I had the tool was removed that I used to handle all those emotions. And when that happened, now I had them all there, which is why I sought help and was doing all that. But I didn't realize that in the back of my mind, I was keeping that option open.
Yeah.
And I remember it was sometime when I was seeing you on a regular basis, and we were in your office together, and I remember getting to a point where I was starting to love myself enough that that blanket got removed.
Yeah.
And I remember how cold I felt in your office because I'd come to that realization. And it's funny how your emotions really do transfer into your body, right? You know,
Oh
your
my
body
God,
is
mind
carrying
body
your,
connection.
yeah, and your health of your body and all that. And yeah, I remember when I was like, I came to the realization. I was telling you about that realization. It was kind of we were working in that spot, and it was gone, and just being really cold in your chair.
Yeah.
And it's the only time as a Florida kid that I felt good being cold. I mean, I know I'm crying right now. There's some tears here, but this is
they're
not
real.
because I'm sad.
No, it's like real. It's like it's like that was really my story. That's really where I was in those
In that
moments.
moment, yeah. And you know that unfortunately that was you know I think I was maybe 3 years sober at that point, somewhere in that. You know, so I was well onto my sober journey, and I don't mean to give the wrong impression, because one of the parts we had talked about hope at the beginning, or you had mentioned hope, was that somewhere along the way when I got sober, you know, I was grabbing a hold of that hope that tomorrow would be better, right? You know, every day tomorrow would be better. And the way I knew that was that even though the negative emotions were so painful, the positive emotions, the positive experience I was having were also much better.
Well, because you're not numbing down,
Because
right?
I'm not numbing down.
The good becomes better, and you can
Exactly.
actually start embracing things for the first time, or there maybe is a little joy.
There's a lot more joy, yeah, and the joy becomes that you can experience the joy. What I realized, you know, while I was going through those negative, and they were deeper than they were when I was drinking, the joy I was having was much higher, and it was much more real. So there was that understanding that there was something positive there at the same time. So it wasn't all, by no means wasn't all negative. There was a lot of positive that was happening there.
Do you think it was maybe the first time in your life you started actually defining your life on your terms? Like
a little bit.
Yeah, where you first started saying, like, who am I outside of like the assigned roles or the things that have happened, or, you know, and you had lost at a very young age, whether you want to talk about that or not, but that you were placed in a position to be very parentified, right, and to be a caretaker at an extraordinarily young age. And so that time where most of us are trying to figure it out, like, you didn't have the luxury of being able to do that.
No, there was a you know, it's funny. It's like, yeah, at that point it was like discovering who I was, and I think one of the funny things is that I went to school to be an engineer. I was going through a civil engineering program.
I remember
right?
you telling me this.
And so the funny part about that is I'm going through school, and I'm doing fine in school, but I don't have an engineering mindset at all. I was discovering that no, you're a little bit more of a writer. You're much more emotionally based. Everyone thought I was more analytical and all that.
Which makes your 22 years in the construction industry remarkable. Not that I'm trying to be stereotypical, right? But I think a lot of people probably have that reaction.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm a much more of a I'm more in the frame of mind of helping people. I'm probably more of a frame of mind of a social worker than I am of a construction manager.
Absolutely, but you're both right and left brain.
I can do both.
You really
yeah,
are.
Yeah.
You really are.
But it was funny because in that run, you know, as I'm learning all that, I'm like, oh well, everything I did in engineering was more intuition based type of thing, and I've been specifically, I'm in the concrete business, you know, so it's a little bit of art goes into that.
Absolutely.
But as I was going through school and figuring that out, and starting to figure that out maybe about myself, that's when my father had a stroke that you were referring to earlier. And so when I was 21 years old, I went running home and was running a family business. And
so the burden, like the amount of responsibility that was placed on you at such a young age.
It was such a small business, and I went from being I'm an only child as well. So this small family unit that I had, and the ideal of my mother and my father came crashing down very, very quickly. Not by anybody's fault per se, but it's just that a 21-year-old boy. You know, we like to think of ourselves as 21. Yeah, sensitive boy.
You know, in the best way. Sometimes people think sensitive is I use that in the most flattering way.
No, it's much more. It's much more. I find it as an older man with a little bit of wisdom, more of a superpower to be able to use.
Yeah.
But when you're 21 and you don't understand what that is, and you think you're showing weakness, you're going, you know.
Yeah, so for so many people out there, especially men, because you're so conditioned. Not that I'm kind of going off on a tangent a bit, but you're so conditioned to, like, you're not supposed to cry. You're supposed to be strong.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
supposed to be, and what do you do when you really are a sensitive soul, and you're feeling, and you're very empathic, and so you're
Yep.
feeling everything for everyone all the time. I can't imagine what that must have been like. Very lonely.
It's being someone, a 21-year-old, like I said, and the reason why I say boy is that you're not, I wasn't developed enough emotionally. So
Most people are not at that
you're
age.
feeling all that stuff come in. I didn't know what empathic was. I was picking up what was going on around. So what does a young man do in that situation is like, you do a lot of crying in private.
Yeah.
And
So isolating,
and you
right?
feel that you're mistakenly thinking that that's a weakness, and I'm learning more that it's not. But that's
When
really,
did you learn that? When would you say, like, that was the turning point of no longer feeling like I have to hide in private, being the person I am, and more embracing it and realizing, like you said, it's your superpower?
Ironically enough, that was in rehab, and it was day. So I think it was day 4 in rehab, somewhere in that particular zone, and I was in a church service that the rehab had every Sunday morning.
I don't think I knew this.
And yeah, so what happened is that I am in the middle of the pews, and the person giving the service, and it's a non-denominational type of service, right? And I'm listening to this, and everybody else is in there. So there are 70 patients in this rehab, and most of the counselors are there as well. And I suddenly started having flashbacks of everything that happened when my mother passed away, to when my father passed away, to his original stroke, to everything else there. And I start crying. And I'm about to do it again. And
for those of you that don't know, I am so well prepared. I have a roll of toilet paper. This is how we do it here at Couch on Fire. Sorry, not to
That's
minimize
okay.
what you're doing. But
Fortunately, I'm a guy, so I'm used to using
okay,
this
well,
as tissue.
that's wonderful.
I start crying, and my mind is stuck there. I'm stuck in the past. Now looking at it with a little bit more wisdom and more knowledge, I realize that I probably was also disassociating at that time and living in that spot.
Sure.
But I can't stop. So I'm doing this in front of everybody. And I get out of that, and I'm now on this campus. It's a fairly beautiful campus. And I'm walking in a very numb way, and I find a kind of a little park bench area, and I happen to be next to the, ironically enough, the shuffleboard courts. And I'm there, and again, like I said, I can't stop crying. I am a mess. My shirt has got, is just wet, and I'm now using the toilet paper.
Note to self: I'll improve this.
I'll swing by Costco and get you a large box of them.
You're so good. I think I should at least be able to provide that as the host. But thank you.
appreciate that.
God bless your sweet soul.
So I am crying, and I'm in a spot like I kind of know where I am. I kind of know that I need to be somewhere else. But and one of the I think they called him a PSA at the rehab I was in, comes by and he's sitting down next to me, and he's sitting next to me, and he doesn't hand me a tissue. He doesn't tell me to stop crying. I remember him saying something along the lines of just let it out.
Let it go.
And, he just sat next to me. And I want to say that lasted for a good about half hour to maybe an hour. And he waited till I was done. And, I realize now the reason why he was looking for me is that I was not where I was supposed to be. I was supposed to be in a class of some sort or something
Metaphorically
like that.
and figuratively.
Yeah. Well,
and literally.
It turns out that I probably, as a human being, was exactly where I needed to be in that moment.
And your wisdom shows in this
That
now
today,
in retrospect, yes.
But I was supposed to be physically in a class, but instead of telling me to tough it up, do this, instead of enforcing some set of rules or something like that on me, he basically just lets me finish.
And he lets you be you. He lets you feel what needed to be felt.
And then, so I end up going to, I don't exactly remember where I end up going after that, but that afternoon, I am it's in the free time area, and I pull out this little journal book that they gave me, and I wrote down kind of all of my thoughts that I had. And that's where I realized, and at that point I was able to kind of stop and realize that those tears had not wanted to come out authentically, not the crying and toughen up, kid, and the trying to stuff it back in. And that's also when I realized that they were coming out, in little ways like a relief valve. And instead, this time around, I just let them out, and I actually felt so much better that
freeing,
afternoon. Yeah,
right?
It was a very freeing feeling. And in that moment, who I was in that moment, I was my authentic self. Releasing that, and then afterwards, when I was at dinner or watching the sunset, or the next morning specifically when I got up and watched the sunrise, I was able to appreciate both those things without any hesitation. I was able to appreciate the conversations I was having, and I was suddenly able to be present. It was almost like this shackle of myself, this wall of who I was torn down, and it was a pretty profound reasoning. And I remember that so vividly today, more so than I do how I was feeling so anxious. That got me there. As you brought up, the lack of hope that I had. Yeah. I hadn't felt that in forever. This, though, that feeling of relief I felt there, I've always remembered. I think I carry it with me today because I realize that when I need to cry today, I cry.
Without shame, without explanation even, or feeling you owe someone an apology for that. And, our tears are our catharsis, right?
Yes.
It's our way of saying, sometimes there's just this buildup of all this emotion that we compartmentalize, or we put it in a box and we file it away, and it's going to come out some way somehow. And for a lot of people, it'll come out in anger.
Yeah, and it probably was in ways I don't even remember, and things like that. But it was a bridge that kind of allowed me to be that sensitive person. It allowed me to realize that under no circumstances, that was the moment of will I be ashamed or hiding who I am.
I won't be someone other than who I are. Who I am. I are. I won't be someone other than who I am.
It won't be somebody else.
Which actually brings me to your tattoo. Would you mind sharing?
Which tattoo? I have two tattoos.
Talk about them both. I love them both.
So the first one I got, it's weird.
Can you show them?
Can I get it enough for the camera?
I think so.
Do we got it? So I have the one, and I do have another one on my leg that is a compass rose. Both tattoos I got when I was I'm right about 50 years old, which is kind of a weird age to be thinking that.
But you were in your truth power, right? You were I know who I am.
Yes.
I know who the fuck I am, and I know what I stand for. And I think that was exactly designed at that moment, right?
And it was just one of those things that I think there was a little bit of probably there's some pent up rebellion that didn't happen in my 20s when I was in the family business going on there. But the first one I got, which we just showed, is kind of the music treble with the semicolon. That's basically it's kind of a survival symbol.
Yeah.
And then on the compass rose, the words there are saying, "All that wander are not lost."
All that wander are not.
And a lot of that is that I also, when I got that, I'm 50 years old. I don't have children at the moment, or I don't have my own children. How my life path has gone has a little bit of wonder that's in there. A lot of.
But you certainly have a special relationship now, and an amazing child.
It is, it is funny how you have that in your thing. It's I haven't done everything. I used to call it the white picket fence.
Yeah.
Right, and now I have a partnership with a beautiful woman who has a 7-year-old who I've now known for coming up on 3 years now, and it's one of those things of the idea of getting to have her in my life, and I would not be able to do that. If I hadn't gotten sober, I also wouldn't have been able to do that had I not faced the storm and done the work that it took to do everything else that we were talking about that I had to deal with as I got sober and had to deal with those emotions. And now into where I am today, it's and again, not the stereotypical path. I'm now over 50. I have a 7-year-old in my life. It's absolutely fantastic.
It is fantastic, amazing.
When I do go to the elementary school and volunteer with the other dads, I'm one of the older ones that are there.
I don't know what you're talking about at all. I have no understanding of that at all.
No relationship to that.
No, none at all.
Yeah, no resemblance to that. I should say.
But you know what's beautiful about that is there were moments, and you and I, our stories parallel in some ways, not always, but one of them was being older, being single, feeling like the traditional path was not our path, let's
Right.
say, and I think there were times where you're like, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing it. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm with you, Nate. We're not, because we all go through that.
Yeah.
So for people listening, what I love about your story, one is you're inspirational, and that you're now on the other side where you go back and say like, wow, where I was, this like unfathomable. It's part of me, but it's hard to believe that the life I'm living today is the one I wanted back then and thought I would never have.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is funny. It's like because now I'm in the neighborhood with the there's no garage on the house, but like the parking spaces, it's like there is school pickup. There is a lot more traditional. So 10 years ago and 7 years ago when we first met, it's like the idea that I would be in this type of environment. It's like, well, I wasn't expecting it, but I'm sure glad I'm here.
And aren't they the things we plan for ourselves? By the way, are never as good as what the universe has planned for us, or God, or whatever anyone's belief system is. And I think that's where you and I are also very like-minded. We found our faith in spirituality and believing there's a greater purpose. And, I have to tell you, generationally, what I'm learning is when you say empath, younger generations think that's kind of like a joke. Like it's like where people behave really badly and then go, you can't do that, I'm an empath. But that's not what an empath is, right? So maybe we have an opportunity right now, to teach a little something, which is, empaths really deeply feel. Like you have a
deeply feel other
strong
people's
attachment to wanting to do good, to be good, to heal people. We call ourselves, we're really the wounded healers, right? We come from a history of pretty pronounced pain, and that we want to prevent that pain in others.
Yeah, and I think some of the pain that we end up getting along the way there is because we feel deeply. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is that when somebody else is feeling that pain, is like having to make sure that we're not internalizing their pain.
Yeah, or causing or inflicting. Right? We're always worried about that.
We're always worried about that, but at the same time, that run our ability to be sensitive and to help.
Right.
If we just absorb it, then we end up just commiserating with somebody in it, and
and that's one way to lack hope.
That's one way to lack hope. Yeah, it was a very difficult thing for me to learn of where that boundary is of what is going on where, and the hardest thing of that is when we're talking about my family business is dealing with my mother's alcoholism. And I was dealing on it from a young denying of the alcohol part of the equation.
Sure.
As my drinking, by the way, is now ramping up. So putting my head in the sand in there, but then dealing with the angst and anxiety that my mother was feeling along the way, and not knowing what to do with that as I got older. To a point that when she passed away, she was 56 years old, and I watched her.
She was almost our age. That's so unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a looking at where I am now, having a 7-year-old in my life. The idea of passing away at 56 is like not really like in front of mine, but it's something that I was in the back of my mind. And I got to take care of myself, but I didn't put myself in a position my mother did. And it's like, and I watched her pass away from alcoholism, but I denied that for a number of years.
Don't you think we stay in denial because the truth or the reality is just more than we can bear and be able to handle at certain points in our life?
Yes, because for me, the truth, and this is proven out, you've seen it a number of times, a mother that passes away from alcoholism, the sons feel like they have failed. And that was definitely true for me. And of course, it's to anyone who's never dealt with addiction or had someone who may have lost someone with addiction. It kind of sounds foolish because there's nothing I could have done. There was no right or wrong thing I did along the way with relation to her journey of addiction that she had.
Plus, you were the child.
And I was a child.
You were the child.
Even though I was in my 20s, I was still a child.
You were still a child, very much.
And but that, until I said it out loud, I would think that there was no way to say it out loud and actually hear the words of what I was saying. I'm like going, come on, you're not that powerful. You're not, this is a tragedy that is unrelated to you. It's not your fault There's nothing I did that caused that. It just happened.
But don't we all have that? Like, and in the stages of guilt, which maybe another episode. One of them is like feeling like your responsibility. If I had done this, if I had done that, then the outcome would be different. Pretty normal.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty normal to go through that. But
yeah, if I didn't go back to school, my mother would still be alive today. That's still, it's one of those ones that and when it pops up in my head today, I'm like, oh, don't do that.
No, but you had to learn that you're okay.
Yes.
That you are good. Mm-hmm. That you are kind. And so much of our work was healing the inner children within ourselves.
Right.
And I think people think like, what the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean? That means that we all hold these stories, right? Like my childhood stories are going to greatly impact who I am, how I respond, what I believe about myself, the world, etc. Right?
Right.
And so your little boy is the most delightful.
Yes, you talk about him a lot.
I just love him. And your middle schooler, very brave young man, who wears a cape and, and you've done that work. And
yeah.
I think most people don't understand when we talk about the work, like what is the work? The work is like really falling in love with yourself.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
really
all
loving
parts of
all
yourself.
parts,
Yeah.
and the shadow parts, the parts we want to keep hidden, the parts that are ugly, messy, So when you're able to sit here today and say, yeah, here's my story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was addicted to substances. Yeah, I was this. I mean, you're owning your shit. And you're owning your shit because all parts of you are in alignment saying, you know what, I am good enough.
And and I think this is true of a lot of folks, when you look at the rundown of how you get to the decisions you made along the way, most of the time, none of those decisions come with malice.
No.
And so it's just like the decisions that I would make when I would continue to drink. Mm-hmm. It's like, I set in motion a sequence of events. The person that was, working in the family business, that was doing all the work that I could at that time, was starting to drink to excess to cope with the stresses that he was dealing with or that I dealt with. Mm-hmm. That motivation wasn't the idea of, I'll be an alcoholic and it may not be,
I don't know anyone who ever
or,
said, I'm going to go do this.
Or get married to another person who struggled with addictions, right. And then, we get a divorce. Like none of those sequence of events had. So when we talk about those deep, dark secrets that we have, it's like when you actually show them to the light and you ask why, you realize it's like, oh, wait a minute. Those motivations make sense, and really, when you hear someone's full story, it's like the sequence of events that goes through it. You're like, yeah, I can see how you got there. Yeah. I can see how you got there.
Yeah, and I think in general, I mean, when I was in graduate school, they asked me the 2 areas of concentration I didn't want to do. I said, I don't want to do geriatrics because I had just lost my grandmother.
Right.
And I don't want to do substance abuse. So where did they put me? In geriatrics and in substance abuse.
Yes.
And no matter how I try, because in my head, and this was before working in the field, I thought it was too messy, like too ugly, too something, right? And over the last 20-something years, what I learned is that most people who are struggling are some of the most amazing, like deeply sensitive, kind people who like the world was a little too harsh, And I think that's one of the hardest things is that it's so, unlike other like mental health issues or physical health issues, right? It's like villainized, or there's still that moral judgment that goes back to the morality model of the 1940s and 50s, right? When in reality, no, it's people who are really genuinely kind, even sometimes perfectionistic, or just wanting to feel good enough.
Yeah.
And it perpetuates itself because the more you drink, the worse you feel about yourself. The worse you feel about yourself, the more you drink or use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny, and then the like I said, the physical addictions start coming into play, and until you've actually felt that drive that I have to get something to drink, or I will feel, or I've watched it with drug addiction and things like that. It's very much all. It's a difficult mountain to get over.
And the irony of that is that we drink to escape, and we have the false fixed belief that it's helping us, right?
Yeah.
But then when we become so physically dependent or emotionally dependent, depending on the substance, we are totally powerless. You know?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, when you think about it, like, we've just reinforced our own powerlessness,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
already feeling so powerless in my life. Now I'm really feeling powerless. And when you feel powerless, you have no hope. You have nothing that...
You lose that, you lose that hope, because you can't imagine. Well, for me, I could not imagine being without this particular tool, and it was really a way to run. I was running from those emotions, and it was like had I not put myself into a rehab, and for lack of better words, locked myself up to where I could not run.
To protect yourself from yourself.
To protect myself from myself, that I would never have gotten through the anxiety that came up. Because when I talked about crying, is like before that, the anxiety feelings inside me were running pretty high.
Oh yeah, anxiety, depression, dissociation. You touched on like all these things where it's just like the body is like, I can't sustain and cope with this level of energy, whatever that energy is.
Right.
And the crash will come. The tower will come.
Yes, and it's that avoidance, and so that was also part of the journey of getting when I got sober, and then now I'm out of rehab, and I'm up here. I'm taking a job, and I'm finding that a lot of this, I'm better at my job all of a sudden. That all those positive things are coming into play, but those coping mechanisms of that wanting to run that would drive me. My addictive personality, or the what I would use alcohol would all come into play. It's like I would try to run from emotions by doing something else, and nothing negative. It was just, but I would put my head in the sand, I guess, is the best way to do it.
Don't we all? Isn't that a protective mechanism that most of us will use?
It is. Running from stuff is something that is at least. In my case, I think everybody's a little bit different, but in my case, running from tough conversations or tough stuff is something that I deal with.
And let's be honest, people can run from it in all different kind of ways. It could be like, I'm a workaholic, I'm a whatever-aholic.
They'll pick their easiest task to avoid doing the harder task and all that. I was reminded this morning of a metaphor though that popped up because. When I was talking about the decision to go into rehab, was like, that was a big,
huge.
Because that was, I scheduled that, I made the phone call, sitting on a patio drinking beer, made the phone call and booked a flight and got on an airplane. It was a pretty dramatic,
that's a life-altering,
I could tell you.
I am badass.
Yeah.
I am doing it, and I am, and that is a badass decision
At 11:45 that morning, I passed away my last drink to the flight attendant, and that was the end of that, right?
So glad you did.
But it's like in dealing with the coping mechanisms that even today that will pop up in that avoidance that we're talking about, that running part that was a part of my spot. Is this morning I was avoiding this or avoiding the hard things. We were trying to describe how to say what that's like, and it's like and they're in the plains of the United States, like they're wild buffalo. If a blizzard's coming, buffalo will turn and go into the blizzard. They will then go into the blizzard and go through the blizzard. They only experience the blizzard for a day and a half. If you turn and run from the blizzard, that blizzard follows you the entire time, right? And then by the time you go through the worst of the blizzard, you're weak and you could die.
Exhausted.
So buffalo have learned that through years of that they face their problems head on. And I think the reason why.
So you're my buffalo.
At that moment, I had to be, and then looking at it when I got sober, the only running mechanism I really know how to do, besides doing a couple other things, is alcohol. So now it's like, I have to be a buffalo. I have to turn and I have to face that storm when it shows up. I can maybe avoid it for a little bit here or there, but eventually you have to walk through the storm. And it's so much easier to do it up front.
Would you have ever imagined, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Would you have ever imagined that now you're in executive coaching and helping people with substance abuse and kind of being more of, I don't want to say the authority, because I don't think that's not your vibe.
By no means am I authority.
But kind of have mastered a lot of the journey of addiction, where you can impart wisdom to people and be there as a support and really give them a safe space.
I think there's no sense. I would always hesitate to say there's a master of it, because everyone's journey is different, right?
Right? I don't think there is.
But the wisdom part, is like there's a lot of that adding into the equation of anytime you're coaching anybody, whether it's your employees or another person running another organization. It's like there's the wisdom part of like, don't do that, I've been there.
Yeah.
Like it's like,
and the compassion part of, I've been there, I understand why you're doing
I've done
that
before, or and then there's the other part of just the heart, the not the hardest thing, but the biggest, most important thing I do is to show people where their light is, because too many times people look at addiction and go, it's immoral, or it's a this, or it's that, and they need to change it, like everything about them. It's like, no, it's what addiction is it covers up who the real person is.
Absolutely.
And it's like
alcohol flavored Nate is not the same as sober Nate.
Right. Internally he is. And that's the conflict that goes on.
Yeah.
That the shame and the beating up is all going on inside there. Internally he is, but the one you're getting, or the one presenting, alcohol Nate, is not the Nate that shows up with compassion, being present, all that. Right. And it's a matter of like getting folks to see that inside of themselves. And then like doing the 12 steps of AA, for instance, if you really go through that particular journey, it's about discovering who you really are.
Yeah.
Sometimes people think about it as like, oh, well, you got to get rid of a behavior or this or that. It's like, you may have some behaviors that you got to get rid of.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about changing who you are, because who you are at your core
is amazing.
It's how who you are shows up that you're working on. And it's just finding that internal light. And that always seems to work well when people are managing other people. Mm-hmm. It's like there's a lot of tools of you can do this or this, right? Like you pull out it's like training a salesperson, pull out the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right?
Yeah.
If you show up authentic, that version of you typically shows up that's in the Dale Carnegie book. If you show up authentic as an employer, that will also show up when you're leading. If again, it's like be yourself without too much trash in the way.
And you know what? It reminds me of the Velveteen Rabbit, that at the end, by the time you realize who you authentically are, like your eyeballs are falling out and your ears are floppy and because that's a journey, and that's the intention of the journey, right? We start off our most authentic version of ourselves as children, and then it's like returning back to that.
It's returning back to that.
Returning back to that.
I think that's what's encouraging watching. It's funny though, looking at, we were talking about the empathic part. Oh, yeah. Looking at the younger generation and that are in their 20s, you're seeing a lot more of that, doing that sooner.
God, I hope so. I would love for people to be where we are in their 30s or 20s and not like have the journey now. But I have to say, Nate, it has been such a pleasure having you here. And you know this, I say this all the time. You are one of my favorite humans.
You're one of my favorites as well. Thank you so much.
Amazing soul. And your ability to come here and just be so real and share your story, like just as a testimonial to who you are and all the work that you've done. And I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
I appreciate you so much. And so, you know what? I'd love for you to come back if maybe you'd be willing to share your story. And before we leave, one last question.
Yeah.
What would your little boy have to say about you right now?
I think he would say, get out and play with Daphne this afternoon.
I love it. I love it. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you soon. And I'm giving you a big hug.
Thank you.
Moving the toilet paper. Thank you so much, my darling. Thanks for joining us here at Couch on Fire, and we certainly do appreciate you. If you want to continue learning how to step up, get out of your own way, dig deep, and live your best life, continue following us. You can hit that like button or subscribe and continue to leave commentaries on anything that we can do to improve or help you. Thanks for joining. See you next week.